Nintendo's like the Disney of video games at this point. With them becoming the richest company in Japan, they owe a lot to their iconic characters. From the playful fun of the Mario series to the epic adventures in Zelda, there's something for everyone when it comes to Nintendo. But just like Disney and their unforgettable villains, Nintendo has their own set of vile fiends. And today, we're counting them down from the kindest faces you go up against to the most twisted and deranged. Who's the worst, most irredeemable bad guys, and who seems almost good in comparison. Hey guys, I'm Brad with One Up Binge, and this is Nintendo Villains Evil to Most Evil. Alright, let's go over the rules. First, we're just counting their deeds and their games, so no external media allowed. This includes Nintendo Power Comics, manga, films, or anime adaptations. Second, their deeds must be from their main series only, so sorry, no Super Smash Bros. And third, we're focusing on the most popular villains. If we missed a villain you think should have been here, let us know. With that said, on to the list. For this video, we'll be starting with the least evil and working our way down to the most vile. First up, we have two characters that are honestly more heroic than villainous, but still acted bad enough to warrant a spot here. Our first Nintendo villain goes to the sword wielder, Meta Knight. First introduced back in Kirby's Adventure, this mysterious swordsman seems to be content being in the shadows, sometimes aiding Kirby on his quest by giving him some rare candy. He can sometimes send his own minions after him to attack Kirby before fighting him himself, but not before offering him a sword for a fair fight. Despite being called upon by King Dedede to help him hide the Star Rod, he's pretty heroic, as future games expand upon his role as being a protector of Dreamland. So, why are we counting him as a villain? Well, aside from fighting Kirby a number of times, which could be pointed towards just trying to test Kirby, he does have two villainy attempts. In one of these two, in Revenge of Meta Knight, the Knight wishes to conquer Dreamworld in order to stop them from being so lazy, being so willing to kill Kirby that he stands in his way while his own ship goes down. In the other, in Kirby Fighters 2, he teams up with King Dedede to kill Kirby to prove that they're stronger than him. That said, him being the villain is more the exception than the rule. He's been more than willing to jump to the aid of Dreamland and is the most noble and least evil of these villains. Next up, with our silver medal of the least vile Nintendo villain, we have our other Dreamland villain, King Dedede. When we first meet him, he was stealing all the food in Dreamland, forcing Kirby to go after him and stop him. The next time we meet him, however, things get a bit more interesting. We see him break the Star Rod from the Dreamland fountain, but he has a good intention: to seal up Nightmare, the threat that Dreamland was facing. From then on, he sort of took a backseat as other villains came to cause havoc on Dreamland, mainly getting himself possessed or kidnapped in some way. Once he breaks free, he's willing to help out the others, like with defeating Zero 2 in Kirby 64, or in Kirby Triple Deluxe by teaming up with Kirby to stop Queen Sectonia. Of course, the Queen still has his fair share of vile roles, like with the previously mentioned Kirby Fighters 2, or with King Dedede's Revenge, with him going all out on Kirby to settle their rivalry. While he's a far cry from the villain he once was, he still isn't completely heroic like a certain swordsman, so we can't place him any higher. In comparison to other characters though, he's truly a hero, even if his claim to the throne is questionable. Next up, we have Anti-Mario, Wario. Now, for someone who was made to be an evil version of Mario, Wario certainly does live up to his name. His first introduction was hijacking Mario's island and castle and keeping it for himself. After this introduction, he became popular enough to get a spin-off series, Wario Land, where he's an adventurer looking for money, and maybe sometimes saving the day by rescuing someone. His main obsession, however, is money, and doesn't really care if he saves a princess, even tossing them aside if they stand in his way of the gold. His greed extends to his other side series, WarioWare. Here, he's the owner of a micro-game business in Diamond City, enlisting the help of his friends to create these small, quick games for him. Seems legit, up to the point where he tries to keep all their hard-earned money for himself. That said, he still seems to think of them as friends, more than willing to party with them and join them for a night of bowling. And the others seem to like him as well, expressing a desire to invite Wario to their parties. Plus, as stated before, he ends up saving the day a couple of times, so we really can't fault him too much. While not as heroic as the hero he's based on, he's still capable of being a good person. Just don't get money involved. Next up, we have one of the many villainous organizations of Pokemon, Team Rocket. Alright, if we ranked every Pokemon organization and all the individual members in them, this list would definitely be bigger than it already is. But let us know if we should do that in the future. For now though, let's just focus on the most classic group, Team Rocket. This evil crime syndicate is after Pokemon, stealing them and selling them on the black market. They're also prone to using the Pokemon for themselves to further their own goals. The most notable members of this organization are Giovanni, the most serious and cruel of the bunch, and his three most recurring henchmen, Jesse, James, and Meowth. They're mostly known for their anime portrayals, but they were so popular they made their way into the games. While the Team Rocket organization has expanded past their original debut, Jesse, James, and Meowth have only made appearances in Pokemon Yellow, the Let's Go games, and Pokemon Masters. As bad as they are, they're probably the least threatening of the evil organizations, and while they can be competent, they're pretty easy to overcome, allowing them to squeeze in with a relatively low spot. From animal kidnapping to regular kidnapping, we have the Plasm Wraith. Pikmin really doesn't have many real villains, so trying to pick an overarching threat from here is a bit tricky. However, the Plasm Wraith managed to be such a threat. This mysterious and sentient primordial ooze is the final boss of Pikmin 3, and unlike the previous two games and their final bosses, had a bit of a build-up to him, with him kidnapping Olimar and taking the space captain all for himself. That said, he doesn't seem intent on harming the defenseless captain, save for making him sleep by forcing Olimar's spacesuit to make him sleep. The team rescues Olimar. However, to them, he's happy with damaging and hurting, putting him above others. With his fascination and care for Olimar, we really can't rank him too badly in the end. The Koopa family makes their debut, with the son, Bowser Jr., coming up first. Introduced in Super Mario Sunshine, he's Bowser's son, who just wants to make his father happy. After being told about how Bowser keeps losing to Mario, the young prince wants to bring Mario to his knees by framing him for dirtying Isle Delfino and kidnapping Princess Peach.
So I came here to rescue her.
From then on, he was Bowser's second in command, never being that far away from his father when they faced Mario. Bowser Jr. had his own side adventures, from finding his paper self and befriending him, to leading the Koopalings against Fallful's minions of the best fitness friends in Bowser Jr.'s journey. As a child, he's prideful and arrogant. However, through the course of the adventure, Bowser Jr. starts to develop a thoughtful and caring side for his siblings, the Koopalings. He also states that he doesn't care about what his papa does, just that he wants to help him. In the end, while still a villain and capable of dealing some damage, we can't be too harsh towards someone with this much blind obedience towards his father. And like son, like father, Bowser steps up to the plate. Perhaps Nintendo's most well-known fiend, Bowser made his name known by his constant kidnapping of Princess Peach, with Mario always being there to stop him. Throughout the years since the original Super Mario Bros., Bowser has always picked himself up and is ready time and time again to succeed in his goals. From kidnapping the princess, taking over the entire castle, or forcing her to marry him, the giant turtle doesn't give up. However, he isn't all that bad. He seems to at least be in love with Peach, and he just has a bad way of showing it. He also has a great deal of respect and admiration for his son, and is more than willing to fight against anyone that harms him. And of course, he's also willing to throw down against other invaders of the Mushroom Kingdom, like Fallful. He's even willing to take a break from villainy to join Mario and friends in a round of golf, kart racing, or even a party. While he's a classic villain, there are still other villains that are definitely more vile than him. From the Bowser of Mario to the Bowser of Donkey Kong, King K. Rool comes aboard. This crocodile has taken a liking to Donkey Kong's banana stash, stealing it from him under the cover of night in the first game. So, what makes him more despicable than the other villains so far? Well, he keeps upping the ante every game. The next time around, he kidnaps Donkey Kong as revenge, leaving Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong to team up to save him. After that, King K. Rool decides to kidnap Donkey Kong again, this time kidnapping Diddy Kong as well. Even after all of that, he still gets worse, deciding to blow up Donkey Kong's island home. He doesn't get the chance to, thankfully, but with just how he keeps escalating his antics to beat the Kongs, it's easy to call King K. Rool the more evil one between him and Bowser. Coming up is the fresh and rude DJ Octavio. Once a friend of Captain Cuttlefish when they were both humans, their friendship ended when they both ended up on opposite sides of the Great Turf War, losing and having to hide underground. As the leader of the Octarians, the enemy of the Inkling, The octopus does his best to ensure that the Inklings are wiped out. He does this by kidnapping the Great Zapfish, the source of the Inklings' power for their home, Inkpopolis. The training he puts his citizens through is just as vile, if not more so. From birth, he uses his music to help brainwash the Octarians into serving him. He can also use his powers to brainwash others, like Callie, into being his second in command. For all his evil, he does at least seem interested in the Great Zapfish, due to it being the reason that he can keep the underground running, saving his own civilization. However, he's still dooming one civilization to save his own, so we can't be too generous here, and thus are still ranking him this high. Up next, we have the first of our two Metroid villains, Mother Brain. Originally just a kind computer that helped the Chozo race, she ended up becoming more and more insane after she lost her last child. In her rage, she ends up letting the space pirates raid Zebes and use her powers to take over the army. As the leader of the space pirates, she seeks to bring the entire galaxy under her rule, only to get stopped by Samus time and time again. With her deteriorated mental state, she believes that the universe would be better off with her ruling it. She at least claims to be trying to bring true order to the universe, it's just that her methods are dangerous. She also tries to recruit Samus to her cause, even if she didn't care for Mother Brain. She's still arrogant, not liking how Grey Voice calls her out for her crimes. She also doesn't see much value of her own troops, preferring to let her Metroids feast on them. She's dangerous, and definitely not worth underestimating. From the first Metroid villain, here is our first Kid Icarus villain, Medusa. She seeks to take over Palutena's domain in the Sky World. Originally, that is just what she was, a villain who seeks to take over the afterlife. However, Uprising reveals some interesting details about her life. First, she was once just as benevolent as Palutena. However, she grew hatred towards the mortals, believing that they only call for her in Palutena whenever they are in need, making her believe that humans are ungrateful. She revolted against the humans by turning them to stone and destroying their crops. Second, she's more or less employed by Hades at this point, with him bringing her back to life over and over again. And finally, she did end up playing a major role in stopping Hades, even saving Pit from him and punching Hades' head off, claiming she's done being his puppet.
But I won't play the puppet anymore!
While she certainly is a villain, she has been righteous at one point, and did help Pit and Palutena in stopping Hades. So we do have to rank her not too high up. Up next, we have the most iconic Zelda villain, Ganondorf. Ganondorf is the wielder of the Triforce of Power. This Gerudo was born into a colony of desert people. Seeking power, he ended up going after the Triforce to use its power to conquer the land. However, thanks to how impure his heart was, it ended up splitting as he got stuck with the Triforce of Power, using its might to wage war against Hyrule. Unlike the Link and Zelda that keep changing every game, Ganon never changes. In Skyward Sword, canonically the first game in the series, Link and Zelda were cursed by demise, as he died that a being made from his own hatred will haunt them throughout all of time, that creation being Ganon. Throughout all the games, Ganon's goal of conquering the fields of Hyrule have remained the same. However, some games did give him other motives for this. His Wind Waker version had him envy the land of Hyrule as he lived in a desert, and he was literally made to be a curse to haunt Link and Zelda throughout the rest of time, without any say in the matter. Not only that, but in his recent incarnation of Breath of the Wild, he's a mindless being of pure hate, who can't even control himself at this point. Overall, while definitely evil, he was kind of always destined to be that evil, with no real hope for redemption. Prepare to have fury, as Fawful is next. This fan-favorite bean started as Cacoletta's assistant in Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. However, even then, he was plotting for something greater, creating his own robotic army. He would use his master's death as an excuse to bring forth his true goal. Taking a break in Partners in Time to gather resources, he would gain beans from Baby Mario and Baby Luigi to fund his expenses for his true plan, taking over the Mushroom Kingdom. Spreading a disease called the Blorbs, which inflates and immobilizes toads, he would tempt Bowser, after his latest defeat, to consume a shroom that can inhale everyone inside of Peach's castle, leaving him free to exact his plan. He He ends up taking the Dark Star and fusing with it, becoming powerful enough to take over the Mushroom Kingdom, had it not been for Bowser, Mario, and Luigi. With a power and skill set deceiving enough to rise up from being a second in command to a true threat, he definitely deserves to be recognized as one of Mario's most dangerous foes. For our most evil of Mario's universe, it has to be King Boo. The overarching threat in the Luigi's Mansion series, his goal in life was originally to just kidnap and trap Mario in a painting, only paying Luigi any attention after he gets so close to saving Mario. At first, he seemed to care about his troops, calling the Boos his friends, and even saving one of his most powerful troops, Boolossus. From then on, however, he started to view the younger brother as his most serious threat, thanks to constantly being vacuumed by him. He destroys the Dark Moon to cause the Nice Ghost to go crazy and fight against Egad and Luigi. To his once friends, he decides to experiment on them and no longer cares about them, getting wrapped up in revenge. He gets so angry towards Luigi that he ends up activating a ghost portal that could destroy the entire universe just for a chance of finally killing Luigi. His spite continues in the next game, laughing at how scared Luigi is after he kidnaps Mario, Peach, and the Toads, growing angry at Helen Gravely, despite her being the reason he escaped Egad, and renouncing his own forces as useless. From a petty grudge against Mario, growing into a hatred against Luigi, stopping at absolutely nothing to kill him, he's done a real good job earning his title as the most evil being in the Mario universe. For a threat truly out of this world, we have Gygus. He was raised by a human mother named Maria and her husband George. However, after George fled to Earth after studying about the aliens' PSI ability, Gygus was tasked with the job of betraying his family and killing them to keep the knowledge of their PSI safe so they could attack Earth. However, he still has a great deal of love and respect for Maria, offering to spare her great-grandson, Ninten, and backing off after hearing Ninten and his friends sing a lullaby that Maria used to sing to her. During his next attack, he wasn't as forgiving, but there was a reason for this, as thanks to just how much power he absorbed, he essentially became mindless and doesn't even know about what he's doing anymore. In the words of Porky Mensch, he's an almighty idiot. So while we're definitely ranking him this high thanks to his willingness to go through with his plan of galactic conquest, but with just how he ends up being and his love for his parents, there is some doubt to just how evil he really is. For our bloodied bronze reward, we have Ridley. If we were counting the Metroid manga, Ridley would have definitely taken the gold, killing Samus's parents, faking sympathy to lull the kid Samus into a false sense of security before trying to kill her, and mocking Samus upon seeing her later while telling her how he ate her parents. That's just pure evil. But even without that, Ridley is still a menacing force. Originally just another monster under Mother Brain's command, he became a threatening leader of the space pirates, traveling the galaxy and causing as much destruction and death as possible. He causes galactic-wide destruction and misery for no other reason because he can, including the complete destruction of Samus's home colony, K2L, bringing the Chozo to extinction. He's as evil as you would expect someone with the title Cunning God of Death. The only reason he isn't any higher is that in his actual games, he's mostly just a villain for Samus to destroy, and his heinous actions are kept off-screen or in logs. That said, no one should underestimate how vile the space dragon can be. He's a true monster and true threat. Up next, we have Andross. Originally just another brilliant scientist for Corneria, he has been a controversial figure with his extreme experiments. Thanks to his most dangerous experiment, destroying the city, he ends up getting arrested, being sent to Venom as punishment. Due to how prideful he was, he never owned up to his mistakes and still believes that he's in the right. Spending his time here, he creates an army powerful enough to wage war on the Lylat system. With his acquired powers, he has managed to not only threaten Corneria's way of life, but has destroyed several planets and created several dangerous weapons to help him on his quest. The only real positive we can say about him is that he cares about his grandson, Dash. Seeing him even as Andross himself was a ghost in command, he orders his forces to stop firing on him. He seems proud of Dash for managing to beat the Monarch Dodora. That said, that's the only nice thing we can say. He's a horrible monster that plagues the Lylat system. For Nintendo's most vile villain, there's only one foe who can earn this title, and that is Hades. Now, there are plenty of other Hades throughout fiction, but this one seems to enjoy being evil more than the others. In fact, out of all the villains here, he seems to enjoy being a villain the most of all, and has the powers to back up his boast. He's powerful enough to actively harm the entire universe. He wants to see the destruction of all human souls and claim them for his realm to fuel his army. He views others as just a means to amuse him, not even caring for his own soldiers and actively viewing them as inferior and dumb. He hates having his rule questioned and even killed Medusa for fighting back against him. Of course, he can interfere with smaller scale events just to amuse himself. Even when helping others defeat Aurum, he still decides to stop Pit by bringing forth Mimicuties, and even halting Pit from getting the Lightning Chariot. It doesn't matter how big or small a conflict can be, if he can make someone's life a bit more miserable, he'll gladly do it. With such a dangerous and life-threatening entity that Hades is, how much he enjoys doing what he does and what he did through the course of the game, we are very confident in awarding him as Nintendo's most evil and vile villain. And that wraps up our list! You guys are up. Did we miss anyone you think deserved to be here? Let us know. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters and your favorite games. But most importantly, stay wicked.